Cowboys and the Vikings. Right now, the Vikings are 1.5 home underdogs to the Dallas Cowboys, a total of 48.5. Boys, I slammed this into the account. Vikings. I slammed a teaser leg into the account. Vikings. This is a Cowboys team that has allowed over 200 yards rushing in back-to-back games. This is a Cowboys offense that stutters and putters up and down the field. And oh, by the way, thank you, Stephen Jones, for letting us know they're getting Zeke back out on the field, boys. So by all means, make the offense less efficient for me in my bet. Go right ahead. I don't give a flying F that you're going to put Zeke back out there. I'm glad that you're doing it. And look, over the last 2 weeks, I think this is pretty simple. Over the last 2 weeks, there is Justin Jefferson has an ADOT of 13.5 yards down the field. He's accounted for 48% of the team's air yards. Up until then, he was getting 8 yards an attempt, ADOT of 8.11 and 38% of the air yards. Do you know what's different? They acquired TJ Hawkinson, and TJ Hawkinson is allowed to come and run those intermediate routes and do that stuff over the middle and be super, super capable of being the guy to go to over those intermediate routes. And Jefferson doesn't have to run that stuff anymore, and they can take advantage of his playmaking abilities and his speed and all the stuff further down the field. And I think this offense is a better offense the last 2 weeks than it was the beginning of the season. It was still a pretty good offense before then. Talk to me about luck. Talk to me about, well, if Josh Allen hadn't have fumbled, they'd have lost. If Kirk Cousins had got in from the 1 inch line, they'd have won. I mean, like there's you can paint the narrative any way you want to with any of this. I take it back to what we were talking about with the Giants earlier. The Vikings have an edge on the sideline. Kevin O'Connell is a real coach. Those coordinators are real coaches. They are winning games they lost last year because they are making the right decisions and putting these guys in the best position to succeed. I love this Vikings team at home as underdogs here. Love them in a teaser leg as well. Who dares challenge me on this?
I can't do it. I mean, I've been bad mouthing the Vikings all season long, man, but you can argue all you want about how they were lucky to win that game in Buffalo last week. They were not lucky, in my opinion, to cover the number. They met expectations, in my opinion, against Buffalo just before all the craziness. So I think the market is looking at this game in two different ways. I think you have the people that look at closing lines and numbers and market opinion and think that the Vikings are too short here, because if you factor home field advantage in, they're saying that Dallas would be 3.5 points better than Minnesota on a neutral field with this line, 3 to 3.5 points. And that doesn't seem like it should be accurate, but we're also talking about numbers under 3 now with this game, which are the least impactful numbers when it comes to NFL and spreads. So I do think it's an opportunity to tease the Vikings, Matt. I did tease the Vikings up to 7.5 here. The on-field matchup is the other side of this, where I think you're getting some Dallas action here. And Kirk Cousins should be dealing with pressure again. He's bottom 10. The Vikings are bottom 10 in pressure allowed. Dallas number 2 in pressure rate. And Mo Noir, our senior writer, pointed out in his teaser column that Kirk Cousins' passer rating drops by 30 points when he's pressured. And overall, it doesn't appear that there's anywhere on defense that Minnesota has an advantage over Dallas's offense, unless they run Zeke into the line of scrimmage a bunch of times. But they haven't really been doing that when Dak Prescott is the quarterback. They have been more pass heavy. So top 10 in EPA defense the last 3 weeks against Arizona, Washington, and Buffalo. So the Minnesota defense is improved. That is the other side of this argument. You can make that since coming out of the bye, they have been better. So I think these are equally good arguments on both sides here. So just straight up on the spread, I couldn't really make a decision, but it certainly felt like taking extra points on the teaser leg for Minnesota was valuable. And if this were to flip to the other side for whatever reason and Minnesota's a small favorite, then I'd probably tease the Cowboys up in this situation as well.
So Adam, take a look here. I mean, look, I've heard all this stuff about Kirk Cousins and the passer, but look, under pressure, he's middle of the pack. He's 15th in the NFL. I mean, like that. Yeah, it's not great, and certainly not. Like, I'm not saying he's fantastic or whatever against pressure, but I mean, whatever. He's 15th in the NFL. That's not the worst thing to be middle of the pack against pressure. Clean pocket. He's been absolutely awesome. And again, the addition of TJ Hawkinson, these are full season stats where he's only been there for 2 weeks, and I think that really does uptick what we get out of a production standpoint. And oh, by the way, like I just said, the Cowboys have been gashed on the ground the past 2 weeks. You have Dalvin Cook, Alexander Madison as a 1-2 punch in this thing as well. Am I just blinded by this Vikings love that I have and all these futures tickets that I have on the Vikings, or do you think that this is an appropriate handicap?
When there's a quarterback where we say, you know what, he's been pretty good, but my God, under pressure, he becomes the second coming of Johnny Unitas, then let me know, because otherwise I'm tired of hearing about how much a quarterback's performance drops under pressure when it's not Zach Wilson, right? Like if it's Zach Wilson and fair. The guy goes from pretty good to a dog on 4 legs, then yeah, okay, then I need to know about that. If it drops 20 points, yeah, everybody's going to be worse under pressure. I'm worse under pressure when there aren't 4 300-pound men trying to kill me, which doesn't happen often. So no, you're not blinded in any way, Matt. I bet the Vikings at about 4:30 p.m. last Sunday. This line came out and I thought, what on earth are we doing here with the Minnesota Vikings, who have one of the true home field advantages in the league, one of the only true home field advantages in the league? They were still 2.5 at that point. So I tied them up in a teaser with the Tennessee Titans up to 8.5. And actually the Titans were my anchor leg this week. So I'm already home on one bet where I had the Titans up to 8.5. I had the Niners down to 2 last week. And the other big one I'm waiting on is the Vikings to come in as the second leg of this. You can go deep into the handicap if you want. I'll go to Matt's point. Dalvin Cook and Alexander Madison should be able to run all over the Cowboys defense. At that point, it's not going to matter as much what Kirk Cousins does. And on the Dallas side of things, what was that last week? Honestly, I have no idea what that was. And whatever you think of Matt LaFleur, do you trust Mike McCarthy in a big spot? I don't. I don't trust Mike McCarthy in this spot at all. And it's not because of the call in overtime. Look, let's get this out of the way. That was a 50-50 call. Like, you had no good choice in overtime. Like, it's fine. It's not that. It's more just that we have seen McCarthy over and over again fold in this kind of big spot. So I thought the Minnesota teaser leg up to 8.5 was easy. If you want to play a money line, and frankly, instead of taking the couple points, I probably would just take the money line if that's the way I wanted to go on Minnesota.